Let's read.
Chapter 1. We are introduced to Winnie the Pooh and some bees, and the stories begin. Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, 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 on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there really is another way, if only he could stop bumping for a moment to think about it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't another way. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom, and ready to be introduced to you, Winnie the Pooh. When I first heard his name, I said, just as you're going to say, but I thought he was a boy. So did I, thought Christopher Robin. Then why can't you call him Winnie? I don't, but you said his name's Winnie the Pooh. Don't you know what "the" means? Ah, yes, now I do, I said quickly, and I hope you do too, because it's all the explanation you're going to get. Sometimes Winnie the Pooh likes a game of some sort when he comes downstairs, and sometimes he likes to sit quietly in front of the fire and listen to a story this evening. What about a story? Said Christopher Robin. What about a story? I said. Could you tell Winnie the Pooh one? I suppose I could, I said. What sort of stories does he like? About himself, 'cause he's that sort of bear. Oh, I see. So you could very sweetly? I'll try, I said. So I tried. Once upon a time, a very long time ago now, about last Friday, Winnie the Pooh lived in a forest all by himself under the name of Sanders. One day, when he was out walking, he came to an open place in the middle of the forest, and in the middle of this place was a large oak tree, and from the top of the tree there came a loud buzzing noise. Winnie the Pooh sat down at the foot of the tree, put his head between his paws, and began to think. First of all, he said to himself, that buzzing noise means something. You don't get a buzzing noise like that, just buzzing and buzzing without it meaning something. If there's a buzzing noise, somebody's making a buzzing noise, and the only reason for making a buzzing noise that I know of is because you're a bee. Then he thought another long time and said, and the only reason for being a bee that I know of is making honey. And then he got up and he said, and the only reason for making honey is so I can eat it. So he began to climb the tree. He climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, and he sang a little song to himself. It went like this. Isn't it funny how a bear likes honey? Buzz, 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 I wonder why he does. Then he climbed a little further, and a little further, and then just a little further. By that time, he had thought of another song. It's very funny thought that if bears were bees, they could have their nests at the bottom of the trees. And that being so, if the bees were bears, we shouldn't have to climb up all these stairs. He was getting rather tired by this time, so that is why he sang a complaining song. He was very nearly there now, and if he just stood on the branch, crack! Oh, help! Said Pooh as he dropped 10 feet onto the branch below him. If only I hadn't, he said as he bounced 20 feet onto the next branch. You see what I meant to do, he explained as he turned head over heels and crashed onto another branch 30 feet below. What I meant to do? Of course it was rather, he admitted as he slithered very quickly through the next 6 branches. It all comes, I suppose, he decided as he said goodbye to the last branch, spun around 3 times, and flew gracefully into a gorse bush. It all comes of liking honey so much. Oh, help! He crawled out of the gorse bush, brushed the prickles from his nose, and he began to think again. And the first person he thought of was Christopher Robin. So Winnie the Pooh went round to his friend Christopher Robin, who lived behind a green door in another part of the forest. Good morning, Christopher Robin, he said. Good morning, Winnie the Pooh, said the ewe. I wonder if you've got such a thing as a balloon about you? A balloon? Yes, I just said to myself coming along, I wonder if Christopher Robin has such a thing as a balloon about him. I just said it to myself, thinking of balloons and wondering. What do you want a balloon for? You said. Winnie the Pooh looked round to see that nobody was listening, put his paw to his mouth, and said in a deep whisper, Honey. But you don't get honey with balloons. I do, said Pooh. Well, it just happened that you had been to a party the day before at the house of your friend Piglet, and you had balloons at the party. You had had a big green balloon, and one of Rabbit's relations had had a big blue one, and had left it behind, being really too young to go to a party at all. And so you'd brought the green and the blue one home with you. Which one would you like? You asked Pooh. He put his head between his paws and thought very carefully. It's like this, he said. When you go after honey with a balloon, the great thing is not to let the bees know you're coming. If you have a great balloon, they might think you're only part of the tree and not notice you. If you have a blue balloon, they might think you're part of the sky and not notice you. And the question is, which is most likely? Wouldn't they notice you underneath the balloon, you asked? That might be or they might not, said Winnie. You never can tell with bees. He thought for a moment and said, I shall try to look like a small black cloud. They will deceive me. Then you had better have the blue balloon, you said, and so it was decided. Well, you both went out with the blue balloon, and you took your gun with you just in case, as you always did. And Winnie the Pooh went to the very muddy place he knew of, and rolled until he was black all over. And then when the balloon was blown up as big, you and Pooh were both holding onto the string. You let go suddenly, and Pooh Bear floated gracefully up into the sky, and stayed there, level with the top of the tree, and about 20 feet from it. Hooray! You shouted. Isn't that fine? Shouted Winnie the Pooh down to there. What do I look like? You look like a bear holding on to a balloon, you said. Not, said Pooh anxiously, not like a small black cloud in the blue sky? Not very much. Ah, well, perhaps from up here it looks different. And as I say, you never can tell with bees. There was no wind to blow him near to the tree, so there he stayed. He could see the honey, he could smell the honey, but he couldn't quite reach the honey. After a little while, he called down, Christopher Robin, he said in a loud whisper. Hello? I think the bees suspect something. What sort of thing? I don't know, but something tells me they're suspicious. Perhaps they think you're after their honey. It may be that. You never can tell with bees. There was another little silence, and then he called down again. Christopher Robin! Yes? Have you an umbrella in your house? I think so. I wish you could bring it out here and walk up and down with it and look at me every now and then and say, Tut, tut, it looks like rain. I think if you did that, it would help the deception which we're practicing on these bees. Well, you laughed to yourself. Silly old bear. But you didn't say it aloud because you were so fond of him, and you went home for your umbrella. Oh, there you are, called down Winnie the Pooh as soon as he got back to the tree. I was beginning to get anxious. I've discovered that the bees are definitely suspicious. Shall I put my umbrella up? You said. Yes, but wait a moment. We must be practical. The important bee to deceive is the queen bee. Can you see which one she is from down there? No. A pity. Well, now, if you walk up and down with your umbrella saying, Tut, tut, it looks like rain, I shall do what I can by singing a little cloud song, such as the cloud might sing. Go! So while you walked up and down and wondered if it would rain, Winnie the Pooh sang the song, How sweet to be a cloud floating in the blue. Every little cloud always sings aloud. How sweet to be a cloud floating in the blue. It makes him very proud to be a little cloud. The bees were still buzzing as suspiciously as ever, and some of them indeed had left their nest and flew round the cloud as it began to the second verse. And one bee sat down on the nose of the cloud for a moment and got up. Christopher, ow! Robin, called out the cloud. Yes? I've been thinking. I've come to an important decision. These are the wrong sort of bees. Are they? Quite the wrong sort. So I should think that they'd make the wrong sort of honey, shouldn't you? Would they? Yes. So I think I shall come down. How? You asked. Winnie the Pooh hadn't thought about this. If he let go of the string, he'd fall, and he didn't like the idea of that. So he thought for a long time, and then he said, Christopher Robin, you must shoot the balloon with your gun. Have you got your gun? Of course I have, you said. But if I do that, it will spoil the balloon. You said, Oh, but if you don't, said Pooh, I shall have to let go, and it would spoil me. When you put it like this, you saw how it was, and you aimed very carefully at the balloon and fired. Ow, said Pooh. Did I miss? You asked. You didn't exactly miss, said the Pooh, but you missed the balloon. I'm so sorry. And you fired again. And this time you hit the balloon, and the air came slowly out, and Winnie the Pooh floated down to the ground.